Hello brothers and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be taking a much closer look at the melee weapon, the Power Fist. Now I love the power fantasy here, giant gauntlet that does AoE wave damage to chew through ads while mercilessly pummeling majors in the face or ripping their bodies in half over your head. I went into my Power Fist leveling journey with the full intent to main this weapon, believing that once you unlocked its full potential through mastery points and synergizing with perks in the class trees for Bulwark and Assault, the two classes that have access to the Power Fist, I believed these things would elevate the Power Fist to a position of strength and viability in much higher difficulty operations. And in this video, we'll assess the weapon and see if it accomplishes that task. And as a disclaimer, note that all the gameplay in the video will be a mix of ruthless and substantial. And with that, let's pop the hood and see what this baby is working with. I think one of the best criteria by which we should judge a weapon in this game is the description of the weapon itself. So for example, the Power Fist subtext reads, melee weapon that deals far-reaching wave damage. Also note that the slider underneath the text shows that the weapon is slightly in favor of crowd control as opposed to single target damage. So let's start right here. Let's start by asking the question, okay, does the Power Fist excel as a far-reaching crowd control melee weapon? And my answer here up front is unfortunately going to have to be no, it does not. Here's why. Let's consider first some comparisons. The Bulwark has access to the Power Sword. Yes, I know in yesterday's video I called it an energy sword and I got absolutely brutalized. I got brutalized in the comments for it. With stuff like, tell me you don't know Warhammer without telling me you don't know Warhammer, things like that. I'm going to be transparent with you guys, like I am brand spanking new to the Warhammer world, and in the last few weeks, I've been gobbling down lore via wiki pages and lore videos like looting and just binging that stuff and more, and I'm loving what I'm absorbing, but my brain is also kind of mush right now with all the sheer, overwhelming amount of content and lore out there. I am absolutely 100% bound to use the wrong word from time to time, so please be patient with me if you are a die-hard Warhammer fan, as I try to keep the veritable ocean of information orderly in my brain for now. Anyways, back to the Power Sword. The Bulwark would be crazy to sacrifice the Power Sword for the Power Fist. The sword takes wider swings to hit more targets. It does so much faster than the Power Fist, which requires charged attacks for many of the combos, while the sword just switches to the power stance and swings away. On top of that, the sword has perks in the tree that help it gain back twice as much contested health while swinging. So in terms of crowd control, the sword is much better because you're dishing out more damage more quickly in a wider sweeping angle to hit more targets to queue up more gun strikes more consistently. It's just more. But let's revisit that far-reaching criterion. You might say, aha, well the Power Fist reaches further. Unfortunately, I find tales of the Power Fist's reach to be greatly exaggerated. Let me show you some clips. The Power Fist just often struggles to connect with targets directly in front of it. Standard light attacks have no reach, and you have to be hugging the enemy like a boxer if you want to land the blow. But let's say you want to extend that range a bit. You're going to have to charge up the Power Fist for a thrust jab or a back fist. Now the thrust jab does have a little more forward reach, but the lateral damage is next to nothing. So enemies on either side of your blow, it will fail to connect with them. And you'll continue to lose armor charges to the smaller enemies on your flanks, assuming you have any armor left after holding the melee button to charge up that attack. So the thrust jab is only really effective against a single target in front of you, or the rare occasion that multiple enemies are running at you in single file. And even then, the challenge will be to queue up the attack and get the timing correct. For all intents and purposes, you'd be better off just using the sprint or dodge melee command to execute a cannon punch, which does decent single target damage and knocks them back or interrupts their attacks. You'll find yourself crutching on this attack a lot, unfortunately. And speaking of the cannon punch, like I said, you're going to be relying on this a lot. I actually have two perks in the skill tree that are kind of important here. One of them that increases the damage output of this attack by 50%, and then another one that stacks on top of this that increases the damage to Minoris enemies by 20%. Now, with 70% extra damage on the cannon punch, it still is not enough damage to kill a Minoris enemy. A single Gaunt can take a cannon punch, a sprinting 70% damage boosted cannon punch to the face. They just fall over and then they get right back up. It also struggles against the shielded Zangors of the Chaos enemies. So we talked about the power sword, but what about the assault class in general? Well, to be frank, there's absolutely zero reason to use the Power Fist on Assault outside of just liking it and wanting to use it. Assault has insane crowd control built into the jetpack with ground pounds, and once you land, if there are enemies now all around you, the chainsword and the hammer are far better choices for wide swinging attacks to manage that oh so crucial 360-degree melee combat. The biggest drawback, perhaps, of the Power Fist is the lack of lateral damage. You really need to be able to hit multiple targets in a cleaving style pattern, and the fist just can't do that. Well, not at first at least. See, I was so excited while leveling the fist to ultimately get down the perk tree and unlock the perk Ground Shake, which replaces your stationary heavy attack with a ground slam where you pound your fist into the ground to do a shockwave of damage in a 10-meter radius. Now, on paper, I thought, man, this is going to change everything about the Power Fist, but I'm actually convinced that this perk is bugged. There's absolutely no way this attack is reaching any further than 2 to 3 meters away. Just look at the background gameplay here. I'm sitting here, charging up this ground slam to 100%, and letting it loose, thinking it's going to do some serious damage to the mobs of Minoris enemies that are closing in around me. In fact, I even have the perk on the skill tree that lets me do 20% more damage to Minoris enemies, but behold my disappointment when it does about as much in combat as a duck fart. I'm still surrounded, they're not knocked back. If anything, they look healthier than before, and now I have to take some unnecessary incoming damage because of it. So far-reaching, more like far from it. So crowd control, more like give the crowd all the control in this fight. But maybe, just maybe, the saving grace of the Power Fist will be its ability to brawl with Majoris level enemies. So let's check. Unfortunately, this is by far the worst melee weapon in the game for taking on Chaos Majors. The charge up attacks, even with the perk on the skill tree that makes them charge faster, which I do have equipped, they still take too long to land, and the Chaos Majors just end up teleporting 10 feet away and cooking you like a sausage. And so you're forced to lean on your light combo instead, which has no ability to interrupt attacks, meaning you'll likely have to stop your barrage of punches to dodge out of an AoE fire attack and start it all over again. Eventually, you'll just end up sprinting and doing a cannon punch, watch them teleport, sprint up to them, do a cannon punch, watch them teleport, do it over and over until eventually one of you dies in this war of attrition. Once I got to the end of Reliquary here, I ended up using the loadout station to swap to my chainsword, and it was like I went from driving a golf cart to a Porsche. I was able to stand toe-to-toe with multiple majors and stun lock them with kicks and shoulder checks that are instant casts, by the way, and easily take them down without any teleporting away on me. And it was much easier to dodge their attacks and parry their punches because of the last thing I want to mention about the Power Fist, and that's that you can't see shit. The Power Fist is this big old paw of a hand, and many of the attacks are uppercuts to the jaw, which then obstruct your view, or they leave this reverberating wave effect in the air in front of you, which distorts the tells of the incoming attacks from the enemy that you're dueling, so you just can't see them coming like you can with a chainsword or power sword. It's actually quite frustrating trying to duel a pack of majors with the Power Fist when I'm used to these other melee weapons that make such instances normally very exciting, very fun, very dynamic. That's usually where the game really comes alive for me. But the Power Fist makes it unnecessarily more difficult by blocking your view in more ways than one. And since the best combos with the Power Fist require 4 to 5 inputs before you can land them, the back fist 2 and the thrust jab 2, that means you're often going to get hit before you're able to connect with that final piece of the epic combo. And that's a big feels bad. And so after many hours of playing with a maxed out Power Fist in ruthless and substantial operations, I've come to the inevitable conclusion that this weapon is super cool, super fun, and super underwhelming. I would put it on the short list of things that deserve a buff in this game if Saber can find a way to help the Power Fist either excel at being a brawler with big guys or excel at crowd control by increasing its area damage with the wave attacks, then it might deserve a place in your most competitive loadouts. But until then, I can't recommend you use it for any reason other than just to enjoy its cool power fantasy. And that's my final assessment of the Power Fist in Space Marine 2. Thank you so much for watching the video today. Let me know what you think about the Power Fist in the comments below. And if you enjoyed the video, then please feel free to leave a like on it, as that's the best free way to support the content here on YouTube. And speaking of support, thank you so much to the now almost 3,000 new subscribers to the channel since we began our Space Marine coverage. I appreciate each and every one of you. If you'd like to get involved in a community of great guys who farm this game regularly together, hey, feel free to check out our Patreon page and check the $3 tier. It's dirt cheap, and it gives you access to our Discord groups for general chat, Space Marine LFG, and multiple Space Marine voice chats for teams to congregate. There are now almost 60 guys in there, and we game every day, and it's been my genuine pleasure getting to play with many of you myself and getting to know some of you. If that sounds appealing, check the link in the pinned comment or the description and DM me on Patreon with any questions or troubles you might have. Be warm and well fed, my friends. Courage and honor.